The election was seen by many as a vote on a new hospital or a new stadium. Mike Rann won the day and promised to spend not a penny more than $450 million on the Adelaide Oval redevelopment. Well, not even 9 weeks later, his treasurer has had to promise another $85 million. It's led to claims they both misled the voters. We asked the Premier, the Treasurer and the head of the Stadium Management Authority for an interview. All of them were unavailable. So in a moment, we'll hear from the Shadow Treasurer. But first, a look back at an eventful week with some words of warning from a former CROWS chairman.
They've advised us that they need more money. This is a big project. Prices have moved, I'm sorry for that. This is unfortunate in terms of an extra 85 million.
In the lead up to the election, the Liberals promised a brand new billion-dollar stadium and City West precinct. It caught the government by surprise. Labor ridiculed it as Las Vegas on the Torrens, but the polls showed it might be a vote winner. Then Labor announced its stadium policy. It would back a massive revamp of Adelaide Oval, but said it would cap its contribution to $450 million. The Liberals said it couldn't be done for the money, and that prediction has come true. But now the Treasurer says we should have expected it.
Anyone who has done a home extension, anyone who's been involved in major construction of government projects, we are always at risk of cost overruns.
So who's to blame? Well, it seems the SACA President, Ian McLachlan, is happy to take the extra money and take the blame.
If we have to wear the blame for underestimating the costs of a concept which has changed in scope, then we'll wear the blame.
But it seems the SANFL is not singing from the same balance sheet and is less than happy to be blamed by taxpayers for what's now become an extra $85 million to bail out and rebuild Adelaide Oval.
I'll answer it this way. Football was invited to participate in this whole project. Football has accepted the invitation to participate, A, by the government, B, by cricket, and C, by the AFL. We're doing just that now.
And just as Kevin Foley had promised $450 million and not a cent more before the election, this week it was Ian McLachlan's turn to reassure the taxpayers, saying the buck now stops with him at $535 million.
What we do absolutely understand is that the figure that we have to deal with is $535 million, full stop. By the end of August, we have to have made a decision. We're either in it or we're out of it.
Jarman, McLeod and a few others there.
Today, former CROWS CEO Bill Sanders was making it quite clear from football's point of view, they should be out of it.
Can you see on August the 31st football walking away from this deal?
Oh, once again, without the knowledge of what the SMA's work has been, but given the understanding what the costs are, I continue to say it's a huge risk for football, and if football does walk away from it, it would be of no surprise to me.
Watching all this over the last week or so, are you concerned that the football public will end up with something that's not as good as AAMI Stadium out of all this?
Well, it might be, given what we've heard the last 24 hours with the scale back of facilities and amenities, because I'm sure that the CROWS, who have always said that they wanted to be demonstrably better off if they move to Adelaide Oval, if there's going to be a peel back on facilities for members and supporters, well, they're the ones that are going to be affected, and hence I bring back that risk factor again.
What about the other clubs, like the other SANFL clubs?
Well, they're in the chain. Mission chain, and it may be that they might be better off, but you would need to speak to the SANFL clubs on that. My understanding is there is a groundswell out there within the SANFL clubs that are opposed also to any move to Adelaide Oval. So mine is not a singular view. I mean, we only need to take notice of the letters to the editor of the last few days. I've been absolutely surprised at the anti-Adelaide Oval move, and particularly the number of people that have contacted me personally written and phoned up saying, how can we mount some form of campaign? So it's not a minority group that are opposed, and I think the government have got to listen to the people.
Do you think it'll keep blowing out, the costs? Can you build it for what they're saying?
I've always felt that the 450 that was put up by the government was not enough money, and that's only on the basis of what we know happens in other stadiums around the world. So I always thought 450 million was never going to be enough.
Well, what about the fact that you'll end up with a stadium in the city? Isn't that going to be better for football?
Ultimately, yes. But the city is big enough for two major sporting venues, which we have at the moment, Amy Stadium and the Adelaide Oval. For football and cricket and other sports, I think football's going to be compromised. At the moment, football owns its own stadium. It has enormous assets. And I think, once again, the risks, and this is the confidence that we have in the football people that are working within the SMA, I'm sure that they'll deliver the right result there.
And the right result might be to walk away?
I think it would be.
Bill Sanders there, and joining me now is Shadow Treasurer Ian Evans. Thanks for your time.
Pleasure.
What should happen to the Adelaide Oval development now?
Well, Opposition Leader Isabel Redmond came out in the last fortnight and called for the government to scrap the project, go back to the drawing board and start again. The project costs have blown out enormously, and I think the view is that the taxpayers' dollars could be spent more efficiently in delivering a better stadium.
You've said the voters were conned. Why are you saying that?
Well, look, the voters were conned, Ian. Before the election, this government went out and said that there was going to be a $450 million stadium. The stadium was going to be FIFA compliant for the World Cup. Of that $450 million, $300 million was coming from the state taxpayer, up to $150 million from the federal government. Here we are a few weeks after the state election, and the government's now saying the stadium cost is $535 million minimum. All of that from the state government.
Are you saying they knew before the election?
I'm saying they knew before the election the cost had blown out.
Can you
I've no
prove
doubt
that?
about that.
Can you prove that?
Well, let's walk through what we know. What we know is that Ian McLachlan from the Stadium Management Authority said he was briefing the government fortnightly. Leigh Whicker suggested that the government officers have known all the discussions for the last 4 months, which puts it 2 months before the election. Kevin Foley says he met with Leigh Whicker 3 weeks before the state election and just didn't ask him about the costs. Now, I'm sorry, I don't believe that. I don't think South Australians should believe that.
Well, what should be done now?
Well, what should be done now is, I think football in particular needs to decide, is it going to stand up for football? Football needs to decide whether moving to Adelaide Oval is in the best interest for football. If it's not in the best interest of football, they should have no fear at all of walking away. But as we stand today, we still think the government should abandon the Adelaide Oval project and build a standalone stadium. Remember, football went to this government and said they could build a stadium for $643 million just behind the Adelaide High School. Now, if football can build a standalone stadium for $643 million, why isn't the government considering that now?
Thanks for your time.
Pleasure.